evening, good afternoon, good morning, or whenever you happen to be listening to this. Welcome to the Film Realist Podcast, a film and TV podcast from a complete nobody that's hopefully for somebody. Welcome to another episode of the show. This is in response to a massive Star Wars celebration where I'm going to be giving my initial reactions to, well, not initial, I shouldn't say that, my opinions and feelings from several trailers that were released, and day of recording, the first trailer for the next upcoming Marvel film, The Marvels, was also released today, which I'm going to be reacting to, and I've just thought of this, I haven't reacted to Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse official trailer, which was also released, so this is a ton of trailer talk. Let's get into it with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. If you did not know, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is my most anticipated film of 2023. With a jam-packed year of blockbusters and serious dramas, I am a diehard Indiana Jones fan. I love Harrison Ford. If you watch Shrinking, you could see why, because this man still has it, and especially when he cares about the product, you truly get something special. You can go back to that even in his performance in Star Wars, Episode 7, The Force Awakens, where I really thought that he did something special with the return of Han Solo. Now, we have had the return already of Indiana Jones in 2008 with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which I don't really want to talk about that anymore, but I am very excited about this film leading into what is now officially announced as the final Indiana Jones picture starring Harrison Ford, an 80-year-old, just kicking ass. What I love so much about what these trailers have shown us so far is they are filling in elements of Indy's history that, while we saw parts of his past, clearly with the first three films, ironically Temple of Doom, I'm not sure a lot of people are aware of the fact that that actually takes place before Raiders of the Lost Ark. So there's been a prequel that already filled in more of his backstory and kind of explained who he was. But with there being such a significant gap between Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and The Last Crusade, as well as this next film, we are clearly getting what seemed to be a significant amount of flashback sequences where we are meeting Mads Mikkelsen's character, whose name is escaping me as I type it in frantically, Jürgen Voller, who is a Nazi, because of course the best villains in cinematic history are Nazis. Why wouldn't they be? But we get to see more of the de-aging effects with Harrison Ford, and maybe slightly with Mads Mikkelsen. It's hard to tell because his character is not as old as Indiana Jones would be in this film. We also got the release of an amazing theatrical poster that I really hope I can get my hands on. But this fills out more of his relationship with his goddaughter, Helena. And while this is not officially announced in the trailer, it appears to be here on the wiki, but we do learn that, in fact, she is the daughter of Toby Jones's character, Basil Shaw, who is somebody that Indy had what may have been his last big adventure during World War II. That's an assumption on my part. It's not necessarily explained in that specific detail, but we do know that the Dial of Destiny, or as it may be called, something else, is the MacGuffin of the film, obviously with that it being in the title. But there are elements of this that some may think is concerning, where we hear Jürgen Voller talk about fixing the mistakes of Hitler, which I don't really know what that could mean. I'm hoping that does not mean time travel. Maybe it means de-aging to some degree, like something like the Holy Grail, where you can quite literally dial back your own personal time. I'm not sure. I'm hoping that that's not the case with this. I would prefer not to have as grandiose and sci-fi a MacGuffin, given the fact that Kingdom of the Crystal Skull did have aliens, and I think it went too far into that element. The religious metaphysicalness of the three previous films, I think, fit more in line with this character in the 1930s serial element. Obviously, we get to see the same shot of John Rhys Davies as Sala, which is super fun. Love to see that character. We still don't really get to know a lot about Antonio Banderas' character with Ronaldo, as it's listed here. We do get to see some more shots of the moon landing parade that Indy is riding a horse with. There was a lot of criticism over some of the digital Harrison Ford head effects in that first trailer, and we do get to see different elements of that. I think what I'm most excited about, I'm going to try for that to be the only time I say think, because obviously I've thought it, because it's my thoughts that I am now sharing with you, the listener, that while you can have a good trailer for any movie, look at Green Lantern's WonderCon trailer from 2012, I want to say those trailers came out. Regardless, I, in my personal opinion, there are a certain amount of elements that this trailer shows that indicate it is certainly going to fit in with the tone of the original three films. James Mangold is somebody who managed to handle the successful retirement of not only one character with Logan, but also two with Professor X in such a phenomenal way. And obviously, I'm excited to see Hugh Jackman back as Weapon X and Daredevil 3, but that timeline wise should be prior to Logan given the age of the character. I think having Indy in this time frame is really going to be interesting. I said think again. Dang it. But I do. Given the fact that Indy is such a ground level gritty character, not in terms of tone, but literally in the dirt, in the muck, dealing with the elements of the 40s and the 30s with World War II, a character when society, specifically in North America, has transitioned into the space age, could be a really great reflection on the history of this character. Getting to see him do missions that we heard about in Crystal Skull, where he was working with the British government. Maybe that's why he was working with Toby Jones's character. But I love the fact that there was a specific line of dialogue in this trailer where Indy is acknowledging his history because he has had a crazy life. And while I don't want this to be a ton of nostalgia goggles, embracing the insane life that this man has lived through one of the worst periods in human history and the spectacles that he has been a part of, it could be a really interesting movie. There was a particular shot at the end of this trailer where Harrison Ford / Indiana Jones looks at something and you can just see his eyes welling up. And with the care that Harrison Ford has had for this character in particular, and it'd be clear to audiences if you were present at D23 when they presented the first trailer, with how much he cares about this character, that it matters to him that they made a really good film. I'd be shocked if he did think that Crystal Skull was a good movie. Felt like an obligation to make another one, and I don't think I did it again. I don't believe that that's the case with this. Given the fact that James Mangold is already connected to making a Star Wars film, I'm not necessarily going to be covering the news because it's just news. I want to be able to react to something I see. And trailers really pitching the tone and the character dynamics, I think, are a lot of fun. Phoebe Waller-Bridge as Helena has an excellent rapport in what we've seen of this movie so far. I'm really looking forward to this. I'm going to see it on the biggest screen possible. Let me know if you are excited for Indiana Jones. You can tweet me or the podcast Twitter for your thoughts on this trailer. But that will wrap up how I feel about Indiana Jones. Next, I'm going to give you my reactions to the Ahsoka trailer. Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars. It is Star Wars Celebration. Ahsoka was the first trailer that I saw from the celebration, and I am very excited for this. If you don't know and are not a longtime listener of the show, long time being perspective, really, that I loved Star Wars Rebels. Clone Wars, I really enjoyed as well. I think the final season of Clone Wars may be some of the best Star Wars ever. The 4 episodes Battle of the Mandalore is so good. But regardless, we're talking about Ahsoka, which is very exciting. Dave Filoni in particular getting to tell what would essentially be a continuation from Rebels, but in live action, is really exciting. Rosario Dawson, I thought, did a phenomenal job as Ahsoka Tano in the couple episodes we've seen from her throughout the other live action shows. Not going to talk about Boba Fett. Don't want to get angry. Don't you want this to be a happy podcast? I want this to be a happy podcast, so I'm going to keep talking about Ahsoka instead. And there are teases to what's going on. We finally get to see Natasha Liu Bordizzo as Sabine Wren. More animated characters coming into live action. For some, legitimizes them in a way that they may not have for some fan base. The animated shows, in my mind, are canon. They were made, so they're considered canon, specifically under Lucasfilm. A lot of the things that they didn't want to be canon, they threw out. So they kept these, and that's what I love most about them. We do get to finally see a shot of Iman Esfandi as Ezra Bridger in a hologram. Obviously, if you didn't watch Rebels, there are going to be spoilers upcoming for Rebels, so if you didn't watch it, maybe come back and listen to this after, but I really recommend watching all of Rebels. It's awesome. It's on Disney+. But the mission that Ahsoka appeared to be on during The Mandalorian to look for Thrawn, obviously Thrawn and Ezra were blasted off into some unknown part of the galaxy. At the end of that show, it was a good way of getting rid of characters without killing them off. I give Dave Filoni and the rest of the crew there a pat on the back for managing to keep a substantial amount of characters alive who we did not see in the original trilogy, getting to be alive post the original trilogy, which is, again, a period of 40 years that we can continue to explore forever, and we never have to worry about getting into the sequel trilogy. Oh, wait, they've announced that they're going to be making a sequel to the sequel trilogy with Rey coming back. I'm very excited for that. We don't really know anything about it except who's going to be directing it. Daisy Ridley is back as well. Works for me, but I don't want to talk about that. We're going to continue going to this. I teased this if you follow me on Twitter. We did see the back of Grand Admiral Thrawn's head, and I said to one of my Twitter followers, that looks like Lars Mikkelsen's head. Easily could be his head. And you know what? It was. So that's very exciting. Lars Mikkelsen's performance as Thrawn was incredible. I'm not somebody who's read a lot of the expanded universe that got thrown out by Lucasfilm, so my introduction to that character was in Star Wars Rebels. He was one of the only characters that they carried through for multiple seasons who was so smart and tactical, but yet still had a physical presence if he was threatened in that way. And it was a phenomenal character that getting to explore post the fall of Palpatine could be really, really interesting. And the heir to the Empire, obviously referencing his initial introduction, is really cool, getting to see the remnants try to survive. We've seen part of that with The Mandalorian, but getting somebody who was significantly smarter than Giancarlo Esposito, I'm really looking forward to. We do get to see two brand new characters with Ivana Sakno as Shin Hati and Ray Stevenson as Baylan Skoll. These are characters who we're not sure really about. They have orange lightsabers, so they're not necessarily of the dark side, but that would obviously tend to lead us to believe they're not of the light either. Maybe they are Inquisitors who are no longer Inquisitors. There is a shot of Ahsoka fighting what looks to be like an Inquisitor with the circle grip lightsaber. So where have they been throughout the original trilogy? Were they all put on carbonite ice? Who knows? I'm really looking forward to seeing exactly what the storyline is, how they fit it around the original trilogy, because obviously that existed. This is going to be 8 episodes long. Hopefully it's a consistent story all the way through. Obviously, Dave Filoni's been focusing on this project in particular. We do also finally get to see officially Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Hera Syndulla, a character who I absolutely love. I'm very curious if we are going to at all see Jason Syndulla, who should be around given the end of Star Wars Rebels. Maybe we are going to be getting some flashbacks where we get to see Anakin Skywalker. It has not been officially confirmed or not if Hayden Christensen is back at all, and that would fulfill a dream for me, which is getting to see Ewan McGregor, Hayden Christensen, and Rosario Dawson all as those characters. Live action Clone Wars. Please, Dave Filoni. It's all I really need from this show. I mean, I would love a thoroughly entertaining start to finish television show as well, and I also would like that as well. I don't know who I'm kidding. We do get to see Mon Mothma back. Genevieve O'Reilly has been killing it as this character. If you have not watched Andor, I highly recommend you do. It's probably some of the best Star Wars that Disney has ever given us. And if you're a big fan of Rogue One, I don't understand why you didn't watch that show if you haven't yet. Cards at the table, haven't caught up yet with Mandalorian. I'm a couple episodes behind. Obviously, I'm aware of the big cameo that was in this last week. The Star Wars that I have had time to watch, or have made time for, has been The Bad Batch, which I absolutely love. I think, I did it again! I have really enjoyed that show. Those characters, while introduced in almost a backdoor pilot in the final season of Clone Wars, are thoroughly entertaining. And getting to see the ground level from their perspective with post Revenge of the Sith has been thoroughly entertaining, and quite frankly, at least from the episodes of The Mandalore that I've seen so far, managed to tell a more streamlined and serious story with the aftermath of the Emperor trying to bring in the stormtroopers as opposed to the clone troopers. I'm really enjoying. I'm hoping that level of storytelling is carried over here to Ahsoka. We do get to see Sabine holding a green lightsaber, which likely is Ezra's for all we know. It was dropped when he was blasted off Space Whale style. It's ironic as I'm recording this, there's a Doctor Who wallpaper on my computer. Both things having had Space Whales. If I remember correctly, it was Series 5 of Doctor Who that we saw those. So different franchises doing similar sci-fi elements. Who cares as long as the story is interesting? I'm very excited for this show. It does not come out till August, so that'll be something that I will be covering the first episode for the podcast, and then the series as a whole. If you didn't watch Star Wars Rebels, I really recommend you do. It also has a couple other characters. One may have popped up in The Mandalorian this season, and another whose unfortunate story did not end on a happy note, but Kanan Jarrus was also a phenomenal character that is one of my favorite Jedi of all time. Ahsoka's probably in the top 3. No, who am I kidding? She is. I'm very excited for the show. My anticipation has only gotten higher with the fact that, as I've said already, we are essentially getting a Star Wars Rebels sequel series, and I hope Ahsoka runs for as long as they want to tell the story. I've got nothing else to say but just pure excitement. I'm fairly certain you can hear that in my voice. That'll wrap up the 2 trailers that I really want to talk about for Star Wars Celebrations. There was Star Wars Visions, but it's very vague and just is a abundance of incredible animation. I highly recommend checking out Volume 1, which was, for the most part, very well done. Really unique takes on Star Wars that unfortunately would likely never make it to live action, but I'm glad that we get to see it in some degree. So I'm looking forward to that, but we don't know anything really about that outside of what we've seen. So with that, I'm going to move into another Disney property with the first trailer for The Marvels. All right, The Marvels, which is a Captain Marvel sequel, while also a sequel to Miss Marvel, the television series on Disney Plus, where I did do an entire season review of that, so you can check that on the podcast feed as well. I'm excited for this. I should also mention, Monica Rambeau is in this, so technically it's also a sequel to WandaVision. This seems to be one of the first main films that is actually taking massive elements from all the different shows, while also being a sequel to the 2019 film, which was a prequel to all of the MCU outside of Captain America, the First Avenger, given its time placement in the mid-90s. While story-wise this gives you nothing, it does function as a teaser trailer, at least in my mind. Fills in some fun gaps, necessarily why the characters are all together. We sort of get an indication as to that. Their powers seem to somehow be interconnected, given their origins, which is certainly interesting given the fact that Miss Marvel's powers seem to be based in the Noor dimension, which we did see in her show. Monica's powers, as well as Carol's, are significantly affected by Infinity Stones. Carol obviously getting hers from the Tesseract, and the Mind Stone potentially having unlocked the witch powers of Scarlet Witch, aka Wanda Maximoff. That's magic to some degree, unlocking abilities within Monica Rambeau. So how they necessarily string that all together would be interesting to some degree. I think that could be... I did it again. Trying not to say that, trying to sound more professional. I don't think it's necessarily going well, but as long as you're enjoying the podcast, that's all that matters. Thank you for listening. It's not over yet. I'm just saying thank you. There are shots in this where we do get to see some unknown space stuff, as well as them traveling to what looks like the Noor dimension, specifically with the backgrounds and what we know of it. Very little really from what we saw in Miss Marvel, but having all 3 of these women on the big screen looks like a lot of fun. If you were not a big fan of Iman Vellani after Miss Marvel, I think that's unfortunate for you. I did it again. Ugh. I liked the way that they modified her powers, making it almost more Green Lantern style with light-based constructs. The fun of that character was certainly present and was a very well executed adaptation for the most part. Obviously, can be critical of the fact that the villains ultimately wound up being people with the same powers, but that's besides the point. This film has been pushed to November. You could read into that if there were potentially bad test screenings. I haven't necessarily heard that. This is from Nia DaCosta. It is the second film in Phase 5, so it to be pushed 3 months is telling, given the fact that Ant-Man did not necessarily do well. It may have not even broken even if the numbers are to be believed. I hope this is fun. I'm looking forward to spending more time with Carol Danvers in particular. She did not know who she was through a significant amount of Captain Marvel, and I'm hoping we get to see who Carol actually is as a person. She obviously pops up in Endgame, but the character, at least for the actress, had shot that first. So as an audience, we don't really get to know what Carol is like, and seeing a mini team of sorts, I hope is fun. Now, fun is something Marvel has done very well. Ultimately, the story needs to be interesting and compelling for this to really matter to the mass audiences. We've seen that with with most of the Phase 4 films and Phase 5 with the beginning of Ant-Man. If you do not tell a compelling narrative, the audience is not going to be maintained, and the box office is a reflection of that. So fingers crossed that that is the case. All three of these actors, with Tiana Paris, Iman Vellani, and Brie Larson, have really good chemistry in the scenes we do see in this. I'm looking forward to this. Do I think this is going to win Oscars for drama? No, I don't think so. But if they've given this the time to be developed properly, this could be a significantly important piece of the Marvel Cinematic Universe moving forward. And I want that to be the case. I want each of these pieces of this larger multiversal saga story to matter. Because if they're just disposable, then we are losing what made the MCU special to begin with. So fingers crossed for that. I will see it November 10th, and I will be reviewing it then. Let's wrap up the show with one of my most anticipated movies of the year, with Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Trailer 2. All right, I have goosebumps. I literally just watched the second trailer for this film. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse comes out June 2nd. Loved the first one, the Academy Award-winning film. Needless to say, high expectations for this. Lord and Miller have teased the fact that so many different Spider-Man, Spider-Men, Spider-Women characters are going to be done with different art style that it's unlike anything we've seen before. We get teases of that in this trailer, and we do get to see more elements of the story. I do like the fact that we continue to see development of Miles being Spider-Man with his parents. There's a funny scene of the fact that he's doing really well in science, but not doing great in Spanish, which of course, if you're unaware, Miles has a mixed background, with that being Latinx and African American. Obviously, doesn't go over well with his mother that he's not speaking Spanish or doing well in the Spanish class, so that's quite comical. The relationship, the characters clearly have evolved more. We finally, in film, get to see Mayday Parker. It would appear Peter B. Parker has worked things out with his version of MJ. What I love most about this trailer is it is going solely against what we think of with Spider-Man and dissecting that whole world of, and Miles had this as well with the passing of his uncle, that there is tragedy that creates this character. Now, that is a common characteristic of many superheroes. Look at a lot of origins of different comic book characters. There is some element where they rise above a traumatic event. Getting to see what that means and how that's tested each of these characters, hoping that we still get a focus on the ones that we do know, is really interesting. Hopping through different universes is also going to be great. We certainly get to see more of Miguel O'Hara, who is Spider-Man 2099, played by Oscar Isaac, where there's a brief scene with the Spot, played by Jason Schwartzman, which is hilarious, and a character whose literal being is multiversal travel. The spectacle for this could be unlike anything we've seen before, as I mentioned, with the different art style. What's most important to me is that it has as meaningful and heartwarming a story, and that the center of this is still Miles's relationship with the returning characters we've seen before. You can have the spectacle and you can introduce new characters, but if that's missing, then this film really did miss the mark. Given everything we've seen so far, I don't believe that to be the case. I'm very excited for this. It looks incredible. It's going to be something I already would recommend anybody see on the big screen, the biggest one you can. I'm going to try to see this in IMAX 3D. I'm not somebody who necessarily enjoys 3D, but given how much I enjoyed the first one, it was a film I did see multiple times in the theater, that I'm hoping, and this is a prediction on my end, that given the teases we've had so far in the scenes we've seen with Rio, Miles's mother, that the first one really did focus on his paternal relationships as well as his relationship to his uncle, that the focus of this having a more maternal side could be another avenue into who Miles is as a person and why he does what he does, why he is his Spider-Man for his universe. I hope that it is as exciting as all the trailers have led us to believe. Really looking forward to this. Potentially going to see this as another Oscar contender would be incredible. I think it would be the first time a non-DreamWorks Pixar slash Disney, I guess it's more. That has, now that I've said that, it's probably happened more frequently. But if this can manage to be as special as the first one, this film may result in another Academy Award for Sony and the Phil Lord and team involved, Chris Miller specifically, as well as everybody else. And I'm hoping for a win for Joaquim dos Santos, who is somebody who has directed some of my favorite animation period with Justice League Unlimited, Voltron Legendary Defender, and of course Avatar The Last Airbender. And in my opinion, the better one, Avatar Legend of Korra. Absolutely love that show. This is something that I cannot wait for. Let me know if you are excited for any of these films after the trailers. Again, you can tweet at me at Kyle_Naranya, or you can tweet at the podcast at Film Realist. Don't forget, Realist has 2 E's. Not exactly sure what's going to be coming up for next week's review, or maybe a mailbag. I haven't really decided yet. I hope you enjoyed this bonus episode. There's 2 this week. Don't count on that being the case all the time. I hope you enjoy the rest of yours. I will see you next time.